Hi, families. Mrs. Peters here, and I wanted to talk to you in this short video about reading. Tomorrow, I'm going to be sharing this poem with my students. The more you read, the more you read, the more you know. The more you know, the smarter you grow. The smarter you grow, the stronger your voice when speaking your mind and making your choice. And if we were in school together, we would be spending time talking about really building our reading stamina and becoming voracious readers. And I define a voracious reader as somebody who reads every chance they get and is able to read across a wide range of texts. So we're not at school, and we don't get that guaranteed 20 minutes every day that we're reading, if not longer on some days. And so it is important that families support that kind of habit. I'll say a little more about that in a minute. But let's talk again about those essential reading standards. So, first semester, we've worked on determining the main idea of informational text, recounting key details and explaining how they support the main idea. Um, Second semester, at the end of January, we will be focusing on determining the central message of fiction text and explaining how it is conveyed through key details of the story. So, determining main idea or central message is, kind of a significant cognitive challenge for 8 and 9-year-olds to really get out the biggest ideas in text. And an informational text where students are taking in lots and lots of facts, trying to determine what the most idea is. It's in a lot of ways supported with our writing work, where we're writing paragraphs that start with the main idea or a topic sentence, and then supporting that with some details. And then, of course, the other important thing that we would be focused on is growing readers and supporting them to kind of move up the ladder of text complexity and difficulty, which is a pretty difficult thing to do right now. So, besides those reading standards, I would like to think that one of the kind of the biggest behaviors that support that for third graders is learning to read and reread text carefully, looking for clues and evidence to support questions about the text. So, we've talked quite a bit this fall about reading like a detective. I will say that we have found it challenging in having just 4 half-hour sessions for synchronous instruction each week to juggle both reading and writing during that time. So what has ended up happening is we end up kind of going back and forth between the two, trying to make sure kids are continuing to do at least some work in whatever our synchronous focus is not. Which is where like the Newsela assignments or Scholastic News assignments come in. But then, of course, we've also learned or been working on learning to answer questions completely, starting by restating the question. So, because we're not at school, because we don't have our classroom library and so many resources available, I just want to remind you of what is available for your children in terms of making sure they're getting that daily reading. So, we've got Epic. You can now check out library books. Scholastic News is a resource that they can access at any time. Newsela, we're giving assignments in, um, but that also is a resource, especially for nonfiction reading. Lexia, most of my students are pretty committed to their Lexia work, which works on kind of 5 skills related to reading. If students are eligible for LAP or ELL support, that's another resource. And then, of course, books from home, if you're lucky enough to have a good library at home. All right, so how can you support your reader at home? And again, we are not able, and I know for a lot of families, I mean, home reading is kind of an expectation and ongoing, but some families rely on that school reading, and we're not getting that school reading in. So, setting up a routine for everyday reading is important. Completing Newsela reading assignments, I think, is really important. And I like it because it's rigorous. I know kids find it challenging. The quizzes, I think, again, kids really need to go back into text to try and find answers. I do think it's a common habit of third graders. If they don't know the answer, just based on their first read, they'll just take a guess and move on. But what trying to support kids to do is to know that they have to go back in, read text like a detective, and look for clues and evidence related to that. There's also power words in some assignments that are vocabulary work. There are some writing prompts that I usually revise to make sure they're not, too complex and too time consuming. Occasionally, there's a social studies or science prompt, and I have not been using those. I can't eliminate them, but I can just write in there. There's no prompt. The other thing that's good about them is they adapt to reading levels, and they do for students who need that support, provide a read to me feature. So, um, the other thing you could really do to help is just discuss what your kids are reading and to ask them those questions and have discussions about what is the most important idea in this text and be able to help them understand what key details are. If you're reading fiction, if you're reading, a novel together or they're reading fiction, what is the message? What do you think the author wanted us to learn? Most fiction text written for kids has, some kind of lesson in it. So those discussions are really important. Tomorrow, I'm going to, as a part of my work, to support students to understand the importance of their asynchronous work. I just really don't know how to move kids forward if they aren't completing a great deal of that work. So I've started to try and acknowledge students who are invested in that and working hard. Also, strategies that they're using. I really am trying to support independence and helping my third graders understand that they are capable of completing work in Google Classroom without the help of an adult. And anything they can do without that help, they need to be doing. If they need help, certainly if they can help an adult or ask for help from an adult in their home, or check in with Mrs. Peters to help them. And then another way of trying to support that is just to acknowledge again those kids. So for News LA reading, I have assigned 7 articles over the course of the school year so far. And Addie, Amelia, Caitlin, Grace Knutson, Jaden Ray, and Marshall have completed work in all 7. Jameson, Grace Komorowski, and Dustin have completed work in 6 of the 7. And Tiffany, Artorias, Miranda, and Josephine have completed work in 5 of the 7 articles. So if your child's name is not on that list, that means that they have completed work in 4 or fewer of those New ZLA reading assignments. So, with that, again, thank you for your help in supporting your reader at home. And let me know if there's a way that I can help you. I feel like we're doing everything we can, but certainly I appreciate suggestions from families. And a couple weeks down, and we get a break. So, thank you for listening, and have a good evening.